Everyone, it's I, Wacky Anime What If here to present you with part 2 of What If Deku was in regular show. I hope you all enjoy, and if you do, make sure you smash that like button into oblivion. Let's go ahead and get right into this. Izuku is currently right in front of Benson, Rigby, and Mordecai, and Pops. They're all in the living room in the house, and immediately Benson asks, "Who was that guy?" While Izuku just says, "Well, the guy who kicked you all in the dick, apparently he said his villain name was," and excuse me for my language, he said that his villain name was Dick Kicker. And once he said this, Rigby and Mordecai started laughing because they didn't get kicked in the dick. But Benson said, "Where is he? Where did he go?" And immediately Izuku said, "Well, apparently his quirk is teleportation or something like that. I think he can teleport across multiple universes." And immediately Benson says, "If he could do that, why is he kicking people in the dick?" Izuku just says, "Well, I don't know. Maybe it's his fetish or something. We don't know." And Benson says, "Well, anyway, you three need to go and find him. That is your job for today, on top of your work that you did not do and you skipped out on." He screams at them, and immediately Izuku says, "I don't even work here. You literally dragged me into this job. I don't work here at all. I'm not even from this universe." And immediately as he says this, Benson ends up saying, "Well, you're in this universe now, and you work here now. You signed the paper, remember?" And he pulls out paper from the back of his pocket, and once he does, immediately Izuku just says, "Wait, you don't have pockets, so where did you keep that?" And Benson just says, "Don't worry about it." And immediately Izuku just to start cringing thinking about where it was. And Benson says, "I told you not to worry about it. Don't think about it too hard." And immediately Rigby and Mordecai just are looking at him like, "Oh no, that's disgusting." And Benson says, "It's not from there. I'm wearing a back pocket. It's a little mini pocket that I put on my back." And immediately Izuku saw the back pocket. He was like, "Oh, I thought you got it from your..." And immediately Benson said, "We don't say that here. After all, well, even though there was the dick kicker, there was someone who always ended up kicking someone in the ass, so..." I said it. Oh no. And immediately Pops has flashbacks of what happened a month ago. Pops, a month ago. He's walking outside in the park, walking around, following the butterflies and saying, "Jolly good show," while watching them fly around. And immediately he sees this strange man on a bench. He's standing on a bench, and he's licking his lips, and he's saying, "Whose ass am I gonna kick today?" And he's saying that in a deep, low voice. And immediately Pops just has the weirdest vibe. He's like, I don't want to go near him. But then he realizes something. The butterflies are going that way, and he wants to watch the butterflies. So he starts running towards the butterflies and says, "Come back, friends." And once he does that, he doesn't know, but he's heading towards the direction of that guy. Once he catches up to the butterflies, he ends up seeing that guy right in front of the butterflies. And immediately the guy's like, "Thank you, my children. You brought me my next victim." And immediately Pops is like, "Very bad show." And immediately he's brought into a hospital a few minutes later. And Benson is right in front of the bench of where it happened. And then he asks the paramedics, "What happened?" And immediately the paramedic says, "It was the butt kicker." And immediately Benson just says, "Wait, what's the butt kicker? Who's the butt kicker? And exactly how did this happen?" And the paramedic just says, "Well, the butt kicker, he ran and escaped from prison because, well, the bus that was supposed to transfer him to prison, well, he went up towards the bus driver and he put his foot in his..." And then immediately Benson's like, "I had too much information. I don't need to know about this. How did he get in this park?" And immediately the medic says, "Well, he's fascinated with kicking people in the left or right butt cheek, and it makes irreversible damage. Pops will be a one-cheek wonder if we can't fix him in surgery." And immediately Benson says, wait, Pops is going to be Rigby? And basically the paramedics just look at him like, who's Rigby? And he just says, well, Rigby is the guy who always loses at Punchies. He ended up going against... Wait, let me just go ahead and tell you. He just like walks off with him and just starts whispering in his ear, he lost at Punchies because he ended up challenging Skips, a person who works at the park with me. And he got punched so hard that one of his cheeks ended up being dislocated. He immediately says it. And the guy starts bursting out laughing. They both start laughing. And Rigby just walks by and just says, what's wrong? Why are you guys laughing? And why is Pop so injured? And immediately Benson says, oh, don't worry about it, One Cheek Wonder. And Rigby immediately looks at him with a frown and says, stop talking! And he immediately starts running away while having his tail hide his left cheek. And literally the paramedic says, he is the One Cheek Wonder. He starts laughing. Into flashback. Immediately, Benson says, so we don't talk about him. Then Midoriya's like, well, you just talked about him. And you showed a flashback. I don't know why, but in this reality, apparently, we can see flashbacks. I mean, Pops is over there just having PTSD right now. You just see Pops in the corner crying. My left butt cheek is what he says. And immediately Benson's like, now I gotta go calm down Pops. And he walks towards Pops and says, you guys, you better go do your work and immediately find the guy who's been kicking people in the crotch. And immediately Midoriya just says, well, I was going to do that anyway, considering he's my only ride to get back to my universe, I guess. So, yeah. Also, I don't work here. Don't boss me around. And once Midoriya says this, Benson just says, you work here now, so I boss you around. And Midoriya just says, no, you don't. And Benson says, yes, I do. While Midoriya just says, no, you don't. Benson says, yes, I do. And then immediately Midoriya says, you do. And Benson says, no, I don't. Oh. And immediately Midoriya just said, haha, you don't. While Benson's like, dang it, he used reverse psychology on me. And before even Benson could say anything else, Izuku grabbed both Rigby and Mordecai's arm and they just ran out of the house while Benson's like, no! I was tricked. While Izuku's running with them, they immediately go back in the middle of the park and start to rake leaves. While they're raking leaves, Mordecai and Rigby both end up saying, hey, it's so boring. And they throw down their rakes in front of the leaves. While Midoriya is still raking, and he just says, come on, guys, we're almost finished. And immediately, Mordecai and Rigby say, let's take a break. And just as soon as they say that, immediately Midoriya just says, well, we just finished raking over 500,000 leaves into a few piles. So we might as well go ahead and get done with the rest so we can have a longer break. And they're both like, I guess it's alright. And immediately as soon as Midoriya says that, and they say it's okay, a huge gust of wind appears and all the leaves just get blown out. And immediately Midoriya just says, no! And says, alright, let's just go ahead and take that break. And they all three of them are so mad right now. And they start to go back into the house. Immediately, Mordecai and Rigby start to plug in a game that they ended up just getting. And Midoriya is just like, what's this game called? And immediately, Mordecai and Rigby both answer, it's called No One Beats the Hammer. And as soon as Midoriya heard this, he's like, No One Beats the Hammer? Is that the game title? They both say, yeah, it is. Also, it's also the boss at the end. So, well, we're just going to go ahead and play this. So, immediately, Midoriya just says, can you go get a third player? They all three start playing it. They get to the final level. And as soon as they're about to go against the hammer, the hammer starts running towards their avatar characters and starts bodying Rigby by throwing him through a wall. And grabs Mordecai's character and slams him against the table. And Midoriya just runs towards one of the tables and grabs a chair and smashes over the hammer's head. And he starts to lose HP, But Mordecai and Rigby realized as soon as you get punched by this man, you lose an entire HP bar. So you lose an entire life for it. They immediately say, hey, furniture is his weakness. Once Midoriya smashes the hammer over the head, they end up saying, come on, Rigby, Mordecai, we need to go ahead and get all the furniture. They all start running towards the furniture in game. And immediately as they do that, the entire TV just turns off. And Midoriya just says, no, we were so close to beating it. While angry Rigby runs towards the TV and bangs it on the top. And says, come on, we're so close to beating it. And it turns back on. Immediately, Midoriya just grabs a chair and beats the hammer with it over his head. While the hammer is trying to punch Rigby's avatar character. They immediately realize they have to punch the top of it to be able to finish the game. So Rigby and Mordecai start to punch the top of the TV while Midoriya immediately starts to bash over the head of the hammer. And once the hammer is getting all these bashes over the head, he's very low on health. But then the TV just stops completely. So Midoriya just pauses it. They immediately say, alright, we just gotta look for a new TV, is what Mordecai and Rigby say. While Midoriya is like, yeah, we gotta find a new TV. I did not want to leave this game uncompleted. We spent how many hours on this game? Wait, we forgot work! And immediately as they said that, they all started to run outside the house, and once they started to run outside the house, they went directly to their job. Once they got towards the leaves, which was like 500,000 leaves that they had to rake into piles, they were like, ah, shit, they all got scattered everywhere. And as soon as Midoriya said this, and all of them were like, this is going to take forever, is what Rigby says. While Midoriya says, well, it's going to take a while, so, I think we should take a break. While Mordecai and Rigby say, that's what we were thinking. And they just throw down their rakes, while Benson's watching in the background like, I knew it. Slackers. I thought that Midoriya would do better than that, though. And he starts checking on his list. And once he does, he immediately starts to follow them to see where they're going, in case they're looking for the notorious villain, the Dick Kicker. And, well, they didn't find him. All that Benson saw was them going to a coffee shop, Mordecai epically failing to impress Margaret, and accidentally Margaret spilled hot coffee on his crotch, and Mordecai was screaming like a little girl. And while that was happening, Rigby and Midoriya were both laughing and pointing at him. And Benson even started laughing, and he almost blew his cover when he was following them. But he just put up a shady newspaper in front of him, and he had a trench coat on with a fedora. And immediately, as he did that, he was like, oh, they didn't see me. When he peeked out behind his newspaper, they all turned back forward instead of listening to Benson's laugh, because they thought it was kind of familiar where the voice came from. But once that happened and they looked forward, Benson got tapped on the side, and he looks to the side. He sees this one guy with an eye patch, a fedora on, and a trench coat, and he's like, hey, you in the shady club too? And Benson just says, I'm not in a shady club. You're in the shady club. Come on, follow us to our van. Immediately Benson's like, no, I'm not into that type of club. And he's like, it's too late. You dressed the part. You going to do the part. And Benson gets took off to a shady club and never to be heard of for a few hours. While that happens, Mordecai and Rigby and Midoriya are trying to find a new TV for their game, while also trying to get food and coffee, mostly, or ask around if anyone has a TV. Margaret didn't have a TV, and they went to Muscle Man afterwards. Once they went to Muscle Man's trailer, Midoriya knocked on it and said, Hey, Muscle Man, we need to borrow your TV. While Muscle Man opened the trailer door and says, you need to borrow a TV for what? Midoriya immediately said, well, I need to borrow your TV because, well, we were playing a game called No One Beats the Hammer, and we made it to the final boss, the Hammer. And once he said that, Muscle Man just ended up saying, you made it to the Hammer? Nobody beats the Hammer. I don't believe you guys. After all, Rigby sucks at video games. And while Rigby is being offended, and Mordecai is wondering what exactly is Mordecai is wondering, well, he's not that bad, before correcting himself after remembering how last week he immediately died from tripping off a platform which wasn't even able to be tripped off of in the video game. Somehow he managed to get killed by a pebble and fall off a platform in a video game. And Mordecai didn't know how that happened, so he's like, yeah, he is pretty bad. While Rigby says, hey, shut up, while punching him in the side. And once he ends up doing that, Mordecai ends up saying, no, you shut up, while punching him into the side of the arm, and Rigby just holds his arm in pain. He's like, that hurt. While Midoriya just said, well, so Muscle Man, do you have the TV or not? Muscle Man just gets his TV right out of his trailer and starts to walk towards Midoriya with it, but realizes he didn't unplug it. But before he could realize that, he stepped on the first step out of his trailer, and he tripped, and the TV got broken. Once that happened, Mordecai, Rigby, and Midoriya said, oh, great, your TV's broken. We don't have a way to beat the hammer. Come on, do you know any other place we can get a TV from, Muscle Man? Well, Muscle Man just looks upwards after hitting his face on the floor, on the TV, and he says, I know a guy. And they get in Muscle Man's truck. They drive off all the way towards a TV store. And once they do, they get out, they walk in, and there's some guy that has a name tag that says Tom. Immediately, Midoriya just says, hey, Muscle Man, so which TV is it? While looking at the side of them, they see all these flat-screen TVs, but they're all overpriced by thousands and thousands of dollars, which they don't have. So Midoriya says, so how are we going to get one of these? And Muscle Man says, just trust me. I know a guy who owes me, so we're going to go ahead and just cash in a free TV. He walks up towards Tom and says, hey, Tom, I'm going to need to cash in that favor. These guys need a TV, while pointing at Mordecai, Rigby, and Midoriya. Immediately Tom says, no can do. If I give you a TV for free, my boss is going to fire me. Once he says this, immediately Muscle Man says, they made it to the hammer. Tom said, no way, no one's ever made it to the hammer. Once Muscle Man says, yes, but they did. They definitely did. And they managed to make sure that they even damaged him quite a bit, apparently, from what Midoriya said. While immediately Muscle Man just said, so could you go ahead and give us a TV? While Tom just was like, I guess I'll go ahead and get you one. But it's going to be a very, very old vintage one. While Muscle Man says, any TV's good enough. While they all ended up walking with Tom, who was showing him to the aisle for the old TVs, they see a giant TV that looks like a giant box. They see one TV that's all mangled up and is really odd. They see a TV that looks like a sword. And then they see this one really, really crappy TV. And Mordecai, Rigby, and Midoriya both facepalm themselves and say, I hope it isn't this one. While Tom says, it's this one, and points right towards it. While they say, of course. Immediately, Muscle Man says, come on, bro, you can get us a better TV. While Tom says, take it or leave it. And Muscle Man says, you drive a hard bargain. But you know who else drives a hard bargain? My mom. While Midoriya is like, why does he always say my mom after every joke? And Rigby and Mordecai just punch him on the side. And I say, just let him have it. While Muscle Man is taking off his shirt and swinging it everywhere. And taking off with the TV and running towards the truck. And immediately, Mordecai, Rigby, and Midoriya are following him. They get in, they drive to the house, and once they get into the house, go to the living room, they try to plug in the console, and they realize, oh, this doesn't work. There's no plugins for this. While immediately in distress, Muscle Man says, I think I know someone who can fix this. And he calls up Skips, while Skips walks in and says, alright, I think I can fix it. He looks up towards the TV and says, this is incompatible, but maybe I can do it. But why do you guys need this so badly? While Mordecai, Rigby, Midoriya, and Muscle Man all say, because they made it to the hammer. while Skips is like, you made it to the hammer? No one's ever made it to the hammer. While Midoriya says, we already heard this before. And Muscle Man's like, okay, let's go ahead and do this. Skips just fixes up the TV. Once he does, he plugs it in, and they all start playing. Midoriya immediately sees that his character is unpaused once the TV got started again. Once the TV was unpaused, they all started playing. Midoriya started going towards every single furniture in the game and started bashing the hammer over the head with it. So did Mordecai and Rigby, and right when he was at basically 10 health, all the power in the entire city just ran out. And once the power ran out, all of a sudden, the only thing that turned on was the TV, and the controllers and the console all started to light up, and electricity started to flow through them. And then they see something that they never thought they would see. They saw the hammer with a TV face. And immediately Muscle Man says, oh, guys, hey, look at this. It's the hammer. Take my picture. While going right beside the hammer. And Midoriya just puts out his phone and just about to take a picture. And immediately the hammer slaps Muscle Man right in the stomach. And Muscle Man's man-tits just hit him in the eyes. And he's like, oh no, bro. While he falls down. And immediately Midoriya says, I could have seen that coming, and I did. I took a picture, but it shows you being slapped by your man-nips. And Muscle Man's like, delete that, bro. While Midoriya just says, I'll just go ahead and post it on social media. I want to see how far this trends. And immediately Muscle Man just says, no, don't do it, bro. While the hammer started to beat the crap out of Muscle Man. He's starting to give him the 1-2 combo. He is grabbing Muscle Man upwards with one arm and slamming him against every part of the living room. The couch is completely split in half when the hammer throws him right down on it. Skip starts running up towards the hammer and says, let's go. And he puts up his fists right in front of himself and is in a boxing stance. He punches the hammer right in the chest, and the hammer doesn't even flinch. He just raises up his hands and says, pimp slap. My new attack, pimp slap. He just slaps the absolute crap out of Skips. He just flies into the kitchen. And once he flies into the kitchen, he's right beside the fridge. He immediately has stars in his eyes. And he's like, I feel kind of dizzy. I want something to eat. I want some munchies. He just opens up the fridge and starts to eat everything in the fridge. Forgetting that, well, currently the hammer is beating everyone in that living room up. But hey, I guess food, I guess. So Midoriya's like, alright, I guess I'm just going to have to go ahead and use One For All. He starts using One For All, uses his 5%, and he starts just dashing in front of the hammer. He punches him directly in the face, and the hammer just looks at him like, was I supposed to do anything? And Midoriya's like, not in the face. While the hammer's like, alright, won't be in the face. He just kicks him right in the crotch, and he's like, my family jewels. And he just falls down, and Mordecai and Rigby say, he was kicked in the dick. Oh no, bro. Immediately Muscle Man says, oh no, bro, when he saw what happened. Mordecai, Rigby both grab chairs as they start bashing the hammer with them. And once they start bashing it with them, the hammer starts getting down on the ground. And Mordecai and Rigby say, we should have just used furniture the entire time. I mean, it worked in the game. Why wouldn't it work right now? Man, we're so stupid. While Midoriya just says, you could have thought about that 5 minutes ago before he kicked me in my balls, you jerks. While they're both like, well, we didn't think of it. And Midoriya just gets up and he says, well, okay, let's go ahead and finish this. They all start grabbing all the furniture, grabbing paintings. They start bashing him over the head with it. Skips literally comes back in and he throws a jar of peanut butter at him. And all that does is just hit him in the side. And the hammer just turns to him while Muscle Man just hits him with half the couch. And the hammer just flies backwards and gets implanted into the wall. Once he's implanted into the wall, he starts to light off and on. And they can see the controllers visible now. Midoriya, Rigby, and, well, Mordecai, they all grab the controllers and they start trying to play the game. They look into the Hammer's face, and they see the game playing, and they start grabbing everything in the game and start bashing him over the head with it. And once it says, "You won," the TV falls down, and it breaks. And so does the console. And they all say, "Yeah, we beat the Hammer," while they're all jumping in joy. Benson finally opens the door to the house, and he says, "Oh my god, I don't want to speak about what just happened." And he puts his fedora directly in a coat hanger right beside the door, and he looks and sees all the destruction in the living room, and he just says, "I'm not even going to ask what happened. I had a tiring day. But did any of you find the dick kicker? You know, that guy that went around teleporting, kicking people in the dick, apparently?" While Muscle Man says, "You know who else got kicked in the dick? My mom." And immediately, Midoriya just says, "That doesn't make any sense." While Mordecai and Rigby say, well, I don't know how that's possible, but good for you, Muscle Man." And they just let Muscle Man have this, and he just runs all the way outside the house. He gets in a cart, and he starts doing donuts, and he just drives home. While Muscle Man's doing that, Midoriya just says, "Well, we didn't manage to find the dick kicker today." And all of a sudden, the portal opens in front of Midoriya, and he says, "Hold up, I think we found him." And the dick kicker just walks out, and he just runs up towards Midoriya, who is pretty weakened by now because of the hammer. And he's like, "Hey guys, let's go and restrain him." Before they could say anything, Midoriya gets kicked in the family jewels, and he's like, "Why again?" And he just falls to the ground. He's like, "Rigby, Mordecai, get him." They both jump onto the villain that proclaimed himself as the dick kicker. They jump onto him, and they get teleported away with him, and they just don't come back for a few hours. Midoriya is currently unconscious because of the pain that's in, his crotch, while Benson is wondering, why does that guy keep coming back here? And that's where I'm going to end What If Deku Was in a Regular Show Part 2. I hope you all enjoy, and if you do, make sure you obliterate that like